Another story about congressional adultery, hypocrisy, and the secretive D.C. religious group known as The Family has broken late this afternoon. As we've reported, the recently disclosed extramarital affairs of both Republican Senator John Ensign and Republican South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford are linked to this group, The Family, through a house in Washington, D.C. that's called C Street. It's operated by The Family. It's described in tax records as a church, although it functions as a residence for a number of members of Congress, including Senator Ensign. Senator Ensign and Governor Sanford both reportedly disclosed their extramarital affairs to the residents of C Street months before they were forced to disclose them publicly. Although both men called on other politicians to resign because of having affairs, neither Ensign nor Sanford has moved to step down himself. Well, today, late this afternoon, the soon-to-be ex-wife of former Republican Mississippi Congressman Chip Pickering filed an alienation of affection lawsuit against Mr. Pickering's alleged mistress. Mrs. Pickering, in other words, is suing the other woman. Here's why it's news. First, another moralizing C Street-connected politician has a personal hypocrisy problem. As a congressman, Chip Pickering lived at C Street, which members call a Christian fellowship house. On his website at the time was this message to his constituents, quote, "Mississippians know my leadership is grounded on our principles of faith, family, and freedom. And when in Washington, those are my guiding values." In 1998, Congressman Pickering said of President Clinton, quote, "I think for the good of the country and for the good of his own family, it would be better for President Clinton to resign. When someone puts himself forward for public office, then his personal conduct does become relevant." The timing of Congressman Pickering's own alleged extramarital dalliance is still unclear, but he and his wife filed for divorce in June of last year. Congressman Pickering left Congress in January of this year in order to become a lobbyist for the firm that represents Cellular South. That's a telecom company owned by the family of his alleged mistress, a woman named Elizabeth Creekmore Bird. Mrs. Pickering also makes allegations in her lawsuit about C Street itself. Point 4 of her complaint against the other woman alleges that, quote, "Some of the wrongful conduct on the part of Creekmore Bird occurred and accrued in the 1st Judicial District of Hinds County, Mississippi, as well as Washington, D.C., at the C Street complex." By wrongful conduct, the lawsuit is presumably not talking about cheating at Pinochle. And it allegedly happened at C Street, as in the building, the church. We reached Mr. Pickering's office early this evening seeking comment. We were politely told that he was out. Phone calls to his alleged mistress went immediately to a full voicemail box. Now, personal hypocrisy by politicians who campaigned for office on the basis of their own purportedly superior morality, who called for resignations over the marital sins of others, even as they stayed in office during their own, that sort of hypocrisy is newsworthy on its own terms. But in this case, it ties into what's turning out to be this political story of this summer. It ties into and further fleshes out the picture of this secretive religious group that's tied overtly to 2 political sex scandals and allegedly to another. A group that literally provided facilities in which members of Congress could be counted on to keep their affairs out of the public eye. Joining us now once again is Jeff Charlotte. He lived with members of The Family for a year as part of reporting he did for Harper's Magazine. That reporting turned into the book The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power, which is out now in paperback. Jeff, I know you are trying to go on vacation. I promise I will stop bugging you after tonight as long as no more C Street scandals break out, okay?
They just won't stop, will they? They're not going to let us take a break.
It's amazing. All right, this lawsuit filed today, it alleges that Congressman Pickering and his mistress had an extramarital affair while living in C Street. From what you know about C Street and the living arrangements there, could people be secretly carrying on an affair actually in the house?
Absolutely. They speak of the house as a refuge, as a place that they can go to in Washington where they can have the kind of privacy that they don't have anywhere else in their lives. And at the same time, they combine that with an oath to protect each other's secrecy. As fellow C Streeter Zach Wamp, we were talking about the other night, it said we take an oath of secrecy. In fact, one article by a former member of the family talked about the wives of C Streeters and the wives of members of the family. And one of the wives Wise describes it like this. He says, I'm very comfortable with the idea that in my husband's life, first come his brothers in the family, and then come me. So these the family calls itself a Christian mafia, but there's a level in which when you're at the C Street house, it's almost like a fundamentalist frat house.
Well, yeah, in more ways than one. At this point, if the allegations in this lawsuit are true, when we talked last about the enthusiastic secrecy of the family, how that's part not only of the sort of operating philosophy that they have about power, but also about their theology. It's these members of Congress living together, swearing to tell one another their secrets, but not to tell anybody outside the group. You and I talked last night about whether, hypothetically, members of this group would feel obliged to report it if one of them confessed to a crime. Now I want to know if it's possible that this group and this physical house operating under these secrecy rules could be something like a safe house for things that members of Congress wanted to get away with, whether it was a crime or an affair or something else that they knew was going to be trouble for them.
Well, it's something else that I think we need to be looking at, and yes, I think you're absolutely right. And you mentioned that former Congressman Pickering is now a lobbyist for Cellular South, the company that is the company of his mistress. Another C Streeter, Representative Steve Largent, we were talking about the other day, is in the meantime left Congress to become the head of the big lobbying association for that industry, and in that capacity, he's been inviting and paying for Congressman Pickering and Senator Ensign as well to go on trips. We want to know is these are trips related to their issues, so is the mistress going along with this? The bottom line that we see in that is whether it's personal infidelity or any other issue, the family sees their oath to one another as more important than their accountability to the public.
Yeah. Last question for you, Jeff. And again, I really didn't expect to call you again, but this is now this summer's alleged adulterous affair by C Street politician number 3. So when you were in the family, when you infiltrated the group in the research for your book, what was the professed attitude toward adultery? Sex is, I think, probably not the most important thing to understand about this group, but it keeps coming up over and over again. And I wonder if they have a professed morality around issues of sexual morality. About sexual fidelity.
No, the family, in the core of the family, they actually reject the idea of morality for their members. They believe that morality is a secular construct, that morality is something made by man for little people like us, and that if you're part of God's chosen, as we've been talking about, what the family believes that they're sort of a new chosen of God, morality, ethics, these things don't apply to you. That doesn't mean that they endorse adultery. It just means that they're not paying attention as much to it. And then you combine that with, frankly, a fairly misogynist viewpoint. They subscribe to an idea of male headship. In some of their documents, Doug Coe, the leader of the group, was actually advising another member on what to do with his wife, who the member felt was demonically possessed, and Doug Coe said that's quite possible. The symptoms were, and there's just no way to make this sound respectable, the symptoms were that the woman was complaining that she wasn't sexually satisfied by her husband. That was, to them, a symptom of demonic possession. I mean, it sounds crazy, and it would be silly if it weren't happening right in the middle of Washington with these men who are so powerful, who are congressmen and then lobbyists, and this revolving door that seems to be facilitated by the family.
Jeff Sharlet, author of The Family, The Secret Fundamentalism at the Heart of American Power. Thanks for coming back on the show. I release you back to your own family now, Jeff. Sorry to bug you. Thanks for helping us out.
Thank you, Rachel.
Another